coming to California. And normally I like to be able to talk a paper through, but because I'm going to be dealing with a lot of quotations, I'm going to read a little more of this paper than I'm actually comfortable with. And by the way, you might notice from the accent, there's going to be no attempt here to be affected in reading Woody's quotes, but I'm from the Texas Panhandle, so I can't help it. Actually, I came from a very, very small town in the Texas Panhandle called Childress, Texas, and we thought Pampa was the big city, so maybe that'll give you some idea. And also, I'm sorry, it's terrible to follow someone who can sing and play music, so I'm going to be dealing more with just politics, if you don't mind. And I'm going to pick this up. This is after Woody Guthrie has left Okemah and Pampa and has, of course, come to Los Angeles. Guthrie's anger with the mistreatment of the Okies in California seemed to draw him into more radical circles. In 1938, Guthrie celebrated the pardon of radical leader Tom Mooney, who had served 23 years in prison for allegedly exploding a bomb during the 1916 Preparedness Day parade in San Francisco, by composing Mr. Tom Mooney is Free. Ed Robin, who was a correspondent with the People's Daily World and also provided radio commentary for KFVD during the Popular Front period, asked Guthrie to perform the song for a Communist Party function. When Robin inquired as to whether the folk singer had any reservations about being associated with the Communist Party, Guthrie replied, "Left wing, right wing, chicken wing, it's all the same thing to me. I sing my songs wherever I can sing them. So if you'll have me, I'll be glad to go." The crowd loved Guthrie's song, especially his last line, that now it was time to free the entire state of California. While Guthrie's ambiguous reply to Robin indicates that the folk singer was not prepared to fully endorse Marxist-Leninist ideology, he seemed to find no fundamental conflict between the principles of communism and American radicalism, grounded in the concepts of Jeffersonianism, populism, and Christian socialism. To Guthrie, communism was simply common sense. Writing in one of his voluminous journals, Guthrie asserted, "When there shall be no want among you, because you'll own everything in common, when the rich will give their goods unto the poor, I believe this way. This is the Christian way, and it is already on a big part of the earth, and it will come. To own everything in common." That's what the Bible says. Common means all of this, all of us. This is old communism. Accordingly, Guthrie became a regular performer at Communist Party fundraising activities and even commenced a column for the People's Daily World, which appeared in the editorial page under the heading Woody Says. And this was sort of the West Coast version of the People's Daily World from the Daily Worker from New York City. The column, which eventually included 174 commentaries and also illustrations, ran from May 1939 until January 1940. It featured his cartoons, such down-home philosophy as, "I ain't a communist necessarily, but I sure been in the red all my life." A close reading of these columns indicates that Guthrie was a great deal more complicated than the country bumpkin persona he sometimes assumed in his writing. Beneath the colloquialisms and the frequent misspellings, it's an intellectual whose writing articulated the suffering as well as the longing of the Dust Bowl refugees for a better life. Guthrie's columns do not rely upon quotations from Marx and Lenin, but they certainly indicate a strong sense of class consciousness and a disdain for what capitalism had accomplished for common working people. While not a theoretician by any means, Guthrie's pieces also offer some evidence of party influence, as the folk singer supported the shifting Communist Party line in 1939 and 1940 regarding the Nazi-Soviet pact. Nevertheless, Guthrie seemingly maintained his distance from the harsh dictates of party discipline, essentially envisioning the political organization as a voice for peace, equality, democracy, and justice. In his first Woody Says column, Guthrie introduced himself to readers in what he termed his autobiography. When describing his early years in Okemah, Oklahoma, and Pampa, Texas, Guthrie failed to mention the family tragedies which plagued the Guthries. Instead, Guthrie emphasized the exploitive nature of American capitalism by asserting that bankers had forced farmers off their land in the Southwest. Unable to make ends meet in Pampa, he headed to California, hoping to find his relatives. But I didn't know for sure which railroad bridge they was living under. So you see, I was a traveling practically without a magneto. I mean a compass. I didn't know where the heck I was a-going. Of course, Guthrie did find those relatives, although not actually living under a bridge, and they helped him generate his radio show. Guthrie indicated that he was happy to have an opportunity to write his columns because he had, quote, a hillbilly's eye view of the whole migracious labor movement from the South to the Pacific Coast. And because I figured it would be helpful to my people, the Dust Bowl refugees, I was tickled to get the chance. Guthrie chronicled and championed the common people with a strong sense of class consciousness, often employing populist rhetoric. On May 18, 1939, he observed that the wealthy were concerned that providing relief to the poor might reduce the standard of living. Guthrie defined the standard of living as a home, car, clothes, groceries, radio, an electric icebox, and a job with decent wages. Things that people did not have because the wealthy got it from you and me. He continued this theme of exploitation by describing Wall Street as the place where the workers get worked on, and the reapers get reaped, and the farmers get plowed under. Guthrie concluded that Wall Street speculators were rattlesnakes who made easy street impassable for the people. Normally, Guthrie tried to interject some humor in his denunciation of the grafters, but he had little time for levity when fellow migrants were attacked. Guthrie was angered by an article in the reactionary Los Angeles Times, which asserted that the migrants were nothing more than gold diggers seeking to take advantage of the taxpayers and property owners by collecting relief. In this defense of his fellow migrants, Guthrie drops many of his colloquialisms and writes in a more straightforward fashion. He maintained that all his people wanted was a chance to work and earn a living. Guthrie also championed housing as a basic human right to which all were entitled. He described houses as places to raise children in. But in Depression America, corporations were using houses to rob working folks by charging exorbitant rents. In a refrain similar to his tribute to Oklahoma bank robber and folk hero Pretty Boy Floyd, Guthrie concluded that working people could be robbed with a gun or with a house. He continued this theme the following day by observing that policemen were employed to protect the property of the wealthy. Guthrie stated, "A policeman will just stand there and let a banker rob a farmer, or a finance man rob a working man. But if a farmer robs the banker, you would have a whole darn army of cops out of shooting at him." Guthrie's ideas on social banditry may not have agreed with party orthodoxy, emphasizing collective action and identity rather than individual adventurism, but they reflected the reality of many people in his native Oklahoma. In addition to bankers and landlords who were supported by a corrupt legal system, Guthrie had nothing but contempt for loan sharks and private utilities earning immense profits at the expense of the poor. In several columns, he discussed widows, Native Americans, and veterans whose gas or electrical services were canceled. An angry Guthrie complained, "Dear gas companies, uneducated, unenlightened, and uninformed as I am, provides me with a magnificent opportunity and elegant excuse to tell you right here and now that I oftentimes have nightmares in which there go crawling and creeping species of creatures similar to those which are symbolized by the practices you use." His venom was also apparent for furniture dealers who applied high rates of interest to the purchases by working class people who could not afford to pay cash up front for their goods, casting the creditors into the same circle of hell as bankers and utility companies. Guthrie wrote, "Dear credit people, I have come to the conclusion after long meditations, zealous forethought, and silent prayer that you are a bunch of low-down thieves, and I am unable to think otherwise." Personalizing the issue, as he often did in his columns, Guthrie complained that it was difficult for his 21-year-old brother George to get married because creditors were attempting to enslave, degrade, depress, deprive, and otherwise rob our young folks that's fallen in love and trying to get married.